càng rung rương sẽ đầy miệng cô mò vô số sợi dương nhung chiết khmer ông cho còng lúm ông pre ba mây này pre nốc đầy cháy vô man sắc lại pi bò raละบายละบางคลาหานองค์ก็สมัยปราสาทเสลากองบางคนดาลเปรกูเอาอิสรมัยนักดอลอยู่สังมหานกจิตมาโดยทมอกงวงเดินล้อรังเปิงจมหอยืมสองคำปอพรมเปรย์สำนางรบองกัมพูชีมารอนกาดเมียนต้องเกดอมนอกรุบวัดอารามลือตายโซสาทอแถลงกุนอมนอดอมกรมปรึกษาช่วยพักต้องเพลยวีรเพียบอ่อนจารวมกรมกาเงียคามราโปรเสยโปรยุดจกใจยอมบ้านอำนาจเจียดหนึ่งตึงได้เมียนสักเสยรู้สงสาร
យើងខ្ញុំប្រកាសណាសូមក្រាបថ្វាយបង្គំព្រះគុណជាម្ចាស់ជាទីសក្ការៈសូមគោរពជំរាបសួរអាយដាមសាស្ត្រាចារ្យបណ្ឌិតដំឆត្រីអគ្គស្ថាបនិកអគ្គមេបញ្ជាការឧត្តមក្រុមប្រឹក្សាខ្មែរជួយខ្មែររំដោះជាតិជាទីគោរពដល់ខ្ពង់ខ្ពស់និងសូមជម្រាបសួរបងប្អូនខ្មែរទូទាំងសកលលោកជាទីនឹករលឹកនេះជាកម្មវិធីទស្សនៈស្ត្រីលើកទី21ចា៎សម្រាប់កម្មវិធីយើងថ្ងៃនេះគឺជាកម្មវិធីពិសេសមួយដែលកម្របានជួបហើយក៏ជាកិត្តិយសមួយចាស់ទុកក្នុងប្រវត្តិសាស្ត្រខ្មែរដែលទស្សនៈស្ត្រីយើងខ្ញុំមានឱកាសជួបជាមួយដុកទ័រ Sckhk សំទោសក្រោមការអនុញ្ញាតរបស់ឯកឧត្តមប្រធានដុកទ័រ Sckhk លោកជានាយកខុទ្ទកាល័យរបស់ UNOITC លោកនឹងមានប្រសាសន៍អំពីសិទ្ធិអំណាចនិងឥទ្ធិពលរបស់ឯកឧត្តមសាស្ត្រាចារ្យបណ្ឌិតដំឆត្រីដ៏ឆ្នើមរបស់លោកនៅក្នុងសកលលោកយើងខ្ញុំទស្សនៈស្ត្រីនឹងចាប់ផ្ដើមជាភាសាអង់គ្លេសមានដូចតទៅ Good evening and welcome back to Supreme Council of Khmer for Rescue Khmer Lady Viewpoint Show, number 21 show. And now I would like to introduce our panelists this evening. Right now we have Mrs. China Set, and we have Mrs. Galiano. And my name is Chobi Put. I am your host tonight. Happy New Year's, lady, and welcome back. Tonight's show is thank you, my dear. Tonight is going to be the most exciting. The new Khmer Lady Viewpoint team have a great opportunity to have an exclusive interview of a long time UNOITC Chief of Cabinet of the UNOITC, Dr. Sckhk, with the acknowledgement of His Excellency. Lady, I don't want to wait any longer. Let's get us started, interview started.
Now you can.
Very good.
Okay, now very good. You look young man.
I don't know about young man, mate, but
Okay.
a lot of work getting this set up.
That is my niece, our niece, not my niece, our niece, and also the sister. The other one, which is I believe Miss China. I didn't see her inside there. So I introduce to you.
Moninu.
You know him very well. That's Dr. Scott. And Khmer Chawi, that Dr. Scott. The red one is her name is Chawi Chalin. That one there, which is the blue green one, and the sister Kalyan. So you know, I introduce you to them. They will interview you. Can you hear me? Can you hear me at all or not? Khmer, say something. Bon say Kalyan, say something.
Yeah, I could hear you, sir.
You can hear me?
Yes.
Very good.
Good. Okay, I'm leave all you to have. I will shut up and let you all talking. Okay. And who is right?
Why do I switch the phone off because it's interrupting everything?
And Happy New Year, Dr. Scott, Keith Scott, excuse me. Before we begin, I would like...
New Year to everybody.
Thank you very much. Before we begin, I would like to introduce our Sckhk, my lady team. So Dr. Scott could be familiar with us. First, we have Ms. Golianu, and we have Ms. China Chan, and myself is Chawi Pek. Dr. Scott, it is our greatest honor to have the first exclusive interview with you. When On Kalyan brought this idea up, we were so excited and did not think it would be possible. Thank you to Lok Tien and Lok Pusora Pek and me Savan for arranging
this. Very humbling.
Yes, for arranging this this interview. Dr. Scott, we Lady Viewpoint have a few questions to ask each of us. We hope you're able to disclose, clarify, but not to, compromise, violated the,
right.
I want to use this word,
secrecy?
Yes, law. Yes, there you go. Thank you, On secrecy law. On Kalyan, you have the first question, and On China will have the second question, and myself will have the third question. And we will go back, circle back to On Kalyan again. On Kalyan, are you ready for the question, On?
Dr. Scott, and Happy New Year to you and your family. This is such a great honor. I heard about you, and I saw the interview that you did with Mr. Ethan Fox back in 2000, I believe 2015. It's just amazing. But anyhow, I am so happy that you're able to join us tonight. And I have my first question here that would like to ask you. Since the 1980s, regarding the trilateral, tripartite, and trilinium, and the BIS, Bank for International Settlement, could you please elaborate on this? 1942 to 1945 by the international agreement and consent, making each site an international registered repository of all gold deposited by Japan in the Philippines island under the authority of His Excellency Dr. Ray Chadam. As stated in the UNOITC China, Doctor. Could you please elaborate on that part, please?
Right. To understand these things, you have to go back to 1921. In 1921, there was a meeting between all the heads of government in the world. And the problem that they faced was that they had just gone through the first world war, and it had cost the lives of 38 million people. And this was a loss and a death toll that was so extreme. They were used to wars where you lost 5,000 or 6,000 people, 10,000 people. They were never used to something on the scale of the First World War. And in the Versailles Treaty in 1918, the Allies punished Germany for having started that war. But Emperor Hirohito of Japan understood that this would only cause a further war, which would be the Second World War. And at a secret conference in London, 1921, Emperor Hirohito called all the world leaders together to discuss this problem. And eventually, it created two sides, if you like. One was the trilateral countries, and the other was the tripartite countries. One became the allies of the Second World War, and the other became the Axis of the Second World War, where Germany and Italy aligned together. And the purpose wasn't to have a war to round up the gold, but they knew that a war was inevitable. It was impossible that there would not be another war. And they agreed to do everything they could to prevent this continuing into a third world war, or a fourth, or a fifth, or a sixth, or seventh. The reason they were so concerned is, although the technology was not available, the theory of nuclear fission.
Yeah.
So when you understand that potential problem, this is why during the Second World War, gold, it was decided that we needed a new financial system, and they had to go off the gold-backed currency system. The reason why they had to go off that was because it was too rigid. It never gave countries the elasticity they needed to be able to expand or contract their economies. Now, in the plan of the experts, 1928, it was agreed to create fiat currencies. And the process evolved onto that. In 1933 came the Foreign Gold Act in the United States, and every country in the world followed that act. And they made it illegal in every country in the world for people to own bullion gold, in other words, gold bars, or to own coin gold. And by law, you had to surrender any gold that you have to the central banks. The central banks are all part of the Federal Reserve System. All central banks in the world are actually Federal Reserve banks. And so the money, all the gold, was centralized from 1933 up until 1946. And so all governments sent their gold to Singapore. And the purpose for that was it had been agreed that Singapore would fall, and then all that gold would be gathered up by Japan and be hidden. And that's how the gold went into bunkers, caves, and etc. throughout Southeast Asia. Some of it in Cambodia, some in China. So that's how the gold came to be centralized. Now, when you have the entire wealth of the world in a central pool, you cannot leave that to bankers to make independent decisions of how this would be used. There had to be a system, and the system was set up by the G7 governments. And there has to be an arbitration system. At the end of the Second World War, the governments created the tripartite Gold Commission. But the tripartite Gold Commission only had a life of 50 years, and they controlled all the gold under the tripartite Gold Commission. In 1987, they knew that the governments knew that they needed to amend the earlier agreements of 1934. The reason why is because you cannot leave this gold uncontrolled. There has to be a controller. In 1987, actually going through into 1988, the governments of the world elected Dr. Raisi Dan as the controller of the global wealth. It's people may think this wealth is something that's esoteric, something beyond, that it doesn't really affect most people. It affects everybody. For example, when you buy a home, you go to the bank and you sign a mortgage note. The mortgage note is your underwriter. This occurs through your birth certificate. Because everybody is registered into the system through the International Monetary Fund. And every treasury has a copy of their citizens' birth certificate. Your birth certificate is then registered with the IMF, and you become a shareholder of that, all this central gold. So everybody is actually a shareholder. Now, you cannot access the money and take it out. Your share is managed by the Secretary of the Treasury of your country. And you have a bond. It's called a birth bond. And that bond is your access to the money. The way your bond is used in the banking system is it becomes your underwriter. And let me explain that. When you take out a mortgage or a loan at the bank, you will sign a promissory note. Now, let's say it's a house. So if you buy a house, you go to the bank and you take out a mortgage. and you sign a promissory note, which is part of the mortgage documents, and you give the promissory note to the bank, what you don't know is that that is actually payment to the bank for the property. Now, the problem is the house, for example, let's say you're buying a house. So the house becomes the collateral for the loan. But where is the collateral for the interest component, which is possibly bigger, greater than the value of the home? That's underwritten by your birth certificate. Your birth certificate is your entitlement from this global treasure that is controlled by the Office of International Treasury Control. And the Office of International Treasury Control underwrites the interest component of that loan. If we never had that system, the problem then is nobody could ever afford to buy a house. And so the promissory note becomes the property of the Office of International Treasury Control, not the bank. It is the Office of International Treasury Control that underwrites, in other words, is the guarantor. It guarantees your loan. And as I say, that leads into many other things. Something most people don't understand, because most people have a very cut and dried idea of how banking works. I put my money in the bank lends my money to other people. No, that's not true. No bank lends money. No bank in the world lends money. It is illegal for a bank to lend its clients money. So everything goes back to this centralized system, because all this gold that was gathered up during World War II, it's the wealth of every country in the world. And it was the Japanese who secured it and secreted the gold. In other words, hid the gold from the world markets. And the reason for that was that gold actually underwrites the US dollar. And that gold belongs to everybody in the world, but you can't have access to that, except when you use it in the normal procedures of banking. Now, you have to stop the banks from stealing that. You have to stop governments from stealing it. And the person who controls all that is His Excellency, Dr. Ray C. Dan. In the 1980s, there were teams of people, myself among them, who recovered most of this buried gold, and we deposited all the gold, transferred the gold into central repositories, which come under the control of Banco Central Filipinas, right, the central bank of the Philippines. But all that gold is owned and controlled by His Excellency Dr. Ray C. Dan. Dr. Ray C. Dan is a person, but when you refer to His Excellency Dr. Ray C. Dan, the system knows that you're speaking about the International Treasury Controller. Only he controls what happens. You can do nothing with any of that wealth without passing through Dr. Dan. You have to have his consent. Otherwise, nobody applies. This means this is how we stop the world's banks from stealing the money. Because give them a chance, that's what they would do.
Well, thank you, Doctor. Thank you so much. This is only first question. We have 5 more questions.
No problem.
So, yeah, you don't mind? I'm going to ask Ontina to ask.
No, I don't mind at all.
Ontina, going to ask you the second question. Are you ready, Ontina?
Yes, I am ready. Thank you, Dr. Keith Scott. We are very honored to have you here tonight. I've heard remarkable story about you, and we finally meet you in person. So I wanted to keep it short. I have a question to ask you. This is question number 2. As stated in His Excellency website, on the other website, His Excellency was bestowed with 12 international treaties on January the 20th, 1995. Can you please give us some in-depth of these 12 international treaties and what is the significance of each treaty? So our audience could have an understanding, especially the 9 global trading master accounts. And then 1, what is the purpose of these accounts? And then 2, how many signatories of these accounts and how many people sign on those accounts? So all the international collateral combined asset accounts and the 9 global trading master accounts, are these 2 the same, Dr. Keith Scott?
They're all part of the same system. But when we go back to the treaties, there are a number of treaties, there are actually many treaties, but the primary ones under which the obligations of nations and the obligations of the federal system. The federal system is not simply the Federal Reserve. It is a federation of nations. It is not, technically it is the G7, which morphed into the G8 and then again became the G7 and then was extended to the G20. The G20 actually just includes the G7. The key component of this is actually the G7. Dr. Dam has been the signatory of that since 1988, October of 1988. Now, in the treaties themselves, the principal ones is the Treaty of Paris, ratification 1898 of the Treaty of Paris. We have also the Treaty of Yalta, which is a treaty made between the Allies at the end of the Second World War on how this wealth would be used, because remember, it was gathered through the Second World War by arrangement between nations made in 1921. The Second World War was a managed process. And during the Second World War, which occurred because of the problems that were created for Germany after the First World War, the treasure had nothing actually to do with the war, but because of the war, the world governments took the steps to also solve the underlying problem that causes war, and it's money. And so they took the steps to secure that, and the leader of that was Emperor Hirohito. The Schweitzer Convention, which went from 1962 and 1968. Under that convention, it was determined what was of value and what was not of value in the global monetary system. In second thing that occurred after that was in 1971, sorry, was the amendment to the Foreign Gold Act, which meant that gold once again became a market commodity. So that the actual amount of gold being mined be brought into the market. It was mostly bought up by the central banks and put into the same system that we actually have today under the Office of International Treasury Control. But under the Foreign Gold Act, again, which is an agreement between governments, and not just simply American law.
Excuse me, sir. Onchina, you raise your hand. You have any?
Yes, I actually want Dr. Sckhk to actually like clarified you know, the 9 accounts, so we all can you know, get the a definite answer, so the whole will know about you know, the 9 accounts as well. If you don't mind, kind of clarify.
No, the 9 accounts, that's a different thing. There were 9, originally there were 9 master commitment holders, right? The 9 master commitment holders were the 9 master traders, banking traders in the world. And that has now been condensed into one license, one person, which is Dr. Dan.
Mm.
If anything happens to him, the entire financial system will just go down the chute. It's gone.
Wow.
There's no recovery.
You got your answer, Tina.
I sure did. Thank you so much, Dr.
Thank
Key.
you.
There's no recovery.
You are the answer.
Yes.
Yes. The 9 were the 9 master commitment holders, but today there is only one. The 9 master commitment holders were set up back in the 1970s after the change in the Foreign Gold Act.
Okay, sir, I'm going to go on with our third question, if you don't mind.
Yes, sure.
Thank you, sir. This is my question to you, sir. On October 27, year 2020, His Excellency was reconfirmed, ratified by the world body, especially by the United States government and both houses of 12 international treaty, bestow as the sole arbiter to the global collateral account. Can you please elaborate on this?
A document which is called the proclamation document was endorsed, ratified and signed by the leaders of the US Congress on both sides, both on the Democrat side and on the Republican side. In other words, Kevin McCarthy, the Republican leader in the House, Nancy Pelosi, the Democrat leader in the House. Signed by also Mark Milley, who's the Joint Chief of Staff with the Pentagon. This was then signed by the Federal Reserve, by the US Treasury, signed off by the Bank of England, signed off by the National Bank of Switzerland and the Swiss government. The reason the Swiss government is so important is being the world's neutral country. They are what we call the government of protection, the government that is the protective, provides the protection for the collateral accounts. That has always been, because everything was deposited into the Swiss National Bank. From the Swiss National Bank into the bank, into the Bank of International Settlements. Everybody has signed off, reconfirming 2020. And the reason for this is we are moving to a new financial system. And to move to a new financial system, there must be order. There must be control. There must be a viable system established that is confirmed by the world's authorities, financial authorities and government authorities. There must be a system that is recognized by all governments as having absolute power as we make this system. Because over time, what happens, bureaucracies in countries change. And as they change, they forget the past. Because the incoming people don't know what their predecessors did and don't understand. And so these things have to be reconfirmed. People have to reconsent, they have to sign and acknowledge. Otherwise, everything would be questionable. We can't have that. You've got to have a firm, stable system to make the transition from one type of monetary system into another. And so the control and the capacity to be able to do that has to be re-established and reconfirmed. If you don't do that, then authority becomes questionable. The transfer into the quantum financial system will last a very long time, because at that point, computers then control everything. People no longer control, so controlled by artificial intelligence. But we'll have efficiency. The wonderful thing about artificial intelligence is that it doesn't have human emotions. It doesn't have greed. Greed is not a factor in its decisions. It doesn't have selfishness. It doesn't have lack of consideration. And that's why we need to move into this new system.
Thank you,
We have
sir.
to stop banks, as I mentioned before. We have to stop banks from robbing the world.
Well, thank you very much, sir.
It's not the central banks. Yes, it's not the central banks that are the problem. It's the commercial banks.
Thank you, sir. I'm going to go to the next question. It's going to be go back to Own Kalayan. Own Kalayan, please. Your next question, please.
My next question is, relevant international treaties are listed on the Declaration and Proclamation back in January 20th, 1995, and dated August the 20th, 2020, that was certified, right? How many people beside His Excellency, Dr. Ray C. Dam, that has been bestowed with the same authority, Dr. Scott?
Nobody.
Nobody.
The authority of Dr. Dam, and this is what the proclamation refers to. The authority of Dr. Dam is sole. Only he, nobody else. There are no others anymore.
Wow.
The time of others is gone. It is past. There is only Dr. Dam who controls everything
on this planet.
And this is essential because, as I mentioned before, when you want to transfer assets from one party to another party, Only the owner can do that.
Mm.
Nobody can sell your house but you. Nobody can sell your property but you. And it's the same with the assets.
Wow.
Thank you.
And that reconfirmation is the reconfirmation of the Declaration and Proclamation. That is law throughout the world. It cannot be changed. No court in the world can change that. No government in the world can change that.
Wow.
And the reason why it can't be changed is it's agreed to and signed by 209 nations.
Oh.
How can one nation, not even the International Court of Justice, can change that? Nobody. There's only one controller. There is only one owner. And his word is law. Doesn't matter what anybody thinks, wants, says, makes no difference.
And you know, Dr. Scott, no, I want
His word is law.
Okay, we got our answer right there. Dr. Racy Dam is the one and only person that has the authority.
He's the only person that has the authority, yes. Only one. Only His Excellency Dr. Racy Dam.
Yes, Dr. Scott, I want to go back to my first question that I want the to the point answer. Can you just make it plain and simple, if it's possible, please? You know, the treaty, the tripartite, the trilenium, and trilateral treaties. What does the impact of His Excellency to the financial crisis right now that's happening right now, that the America needs him, the Chinese needs him? Can you kind of explain in a simple word for us?
Okay. It is the decisions of Dr. Dam that will determine future. What we want to see is a just world. We want a balanced system. Now, every country in the world can only look to Dr. Dam to provide that. Nobody else can. This is why I say you cannot leave these things up to the leaders of nations. And the reason why you can't do that is because they each have their own ambitions. And their ambitions are just as varied as the practices they use to manage and control their countries. Look at Cambodia today. We would love to be in a position to take everybody in Cambodia who is poor and create a system which could be done. But here's the problem. Look at how fast the leadership of Cambodia is selling out the future of the Cambodian people. And where does that money go? Back to the people? No.
Nope. Not at all. To the
That money is sucked out in private pockets. So how can you put money into something like that? You take China, which has done an incredible job of lifting over 1 billion people out of poverty. But at the same time, you have a nation that is becoming very aggressive and very bellicose and becoming a threat to world peace. What I'm saying there is Dr. Dam, his mind moves very quickly. Now, my experience with Dr. Dam is he seeks good counsel. Even in OITC, he doesn't just simply make knee-jerk decisions. He discusses things with other components. For example, the Federal Reserve. He would discuss with people he knows and trusts. US Treasury. He would do the same with people he knows and trusts, and whose judgment he trusts in, say, the Bank of England, the Swiss National Bank. In other words, he does do things, he makes decisions after he's discussed issues with people who understand those issues. But at the end of the day, you have to have a leader in the world. In the financial world is exactly the same. There has to be a leader who makes a final determination and a decision.
Okay, thank you, sir. We could go on the next question. Just bear with us. It's going to be just two more, and that's it. Ontina, it's your turn, please.
Okay, well,
Not a problem.
you. Dr. Khk. I have a number five question. Since 1995, how many people are in any exercise or have authority of the Marshall Plan Alpha Omega beside His Excellency Dr. Isidam?
Nobody.
Wow.
Nobody.
My goodness.
That's your answer.
The reason, this is why he was appointed under legal decadency as owner of the heir and the owner of those assets.
Wow, that's the answer I would love to hear.
Thank you, sir.
Right?
The
There's
world would
only
love to
one.
hear.
Yeah. And so there is only Dr. Dam. There's a huge weight on anyone's shoulders. And let me explain. We are transitioning into a new financial system, and I believe that through the course of this year, that will not only begin, it will actually happen, that transition. Now, because of that, go back to the ratification and the endorsement of Dr. Dam's declaration and proclamation. This is the recognition that he alone is in control of the world financial system. It's a huge responsibility, because everybody in this world, their lives depend on it. One of the most important aspects of our lives is money.
I'm going to go, this is going to be the last question. I'm going to ask you, sir, as said and stated by His Excellency on Order, Declaration and Proclamation, date August 20, year 2020, all the asset His Excellency is the lawful owner and controller of all the international collateral, combined asset and account, and shall remain for the term of his natural life. That is all God asset. Sir, could you please provide in depth detail, if you could, why is it called God asset? Thank you, sir.
They're derived from the earth, and God made the earth. God created these things. We only use them. And in the end, we have to answer to God. That's why we take our work so seriously. It doesn't matter whether it's a gold bar or a concrete building. The creation of that begins from God.
Mm.
And God is God of all people. And all people are owners of this system. They don't know it, but they are. They are the people who actually own the assets. And they're entitled to use them in a correct fashion. The problem still remains that we have today is that the banking system does not use them as they should. They use them always to their own advantage. We never have. We never will. Because while Dr. Dan on this earth, the man who owned, controls science, we recognize that these assets were given by God for all humanity.
Thank you, sir.
It's a difficult question if one does not believe in God, because it's a question they can't reconcile. But all things come from God. Everything comes from God. Everything that we have, everything that we are, comes from God.
Mm.
And these assets are centralized into a system for all humanity. From a legal perspective, they may be viewed as our assets, but from a real perspective, we view them as God's assets. And we have a responsibility to humanity and to God. And we will never step aside from that.
Mm.
Doesn't matter what people believe or think. We know what our responsibilities are. We also know that at the end of our life, we have to face God.
Yes. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Wow, it's just give me the chills by listening, you know, how much power His Excellency had. Thank you so much, Dr. Scott, for talking, you know, taking your busy time to come join
My pleasure.
us today. Thank you, sir. And we learned so much about our Lopatin, His Excellency. We hope to see you again soon, sir. And On Kalayan.
You're very welcome.
Thank you, sir, very much. Thank you.
You are very, very welcome. Very welcome.
Thank you so much, Dr. Scott. It's been a pleasure, even though we are meeting not in person, but at least we can see each other. And I am
Correct.
sure that, we're going to see each other in the near future, of course. And yes, you are absolutely right. Our Lopatin, His Excellency, he is an extraordinary person. And we are very lucky to be able to be walking with him through our next journey. I just know word to describe, His Excellency, except we are very fortunate to be Cambodian. I am very fortunate to be
Yes,
Cambodian.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that.
Thank you, Dr. Scott. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you very, very much, lady.
Dr. Scott, thank you so much. Like all the lady had mentioned, we are very honored to have you here with us tonight. Basically, all the questions that we wanted to hear, not that we haven't heard already, we've heard, but with you piggyback and on this astronomical information about Dr. Racidam, it's just an awe feeling, something that's unimaginable in this lifetime for all of us to actually kind of encounter. So we're happy that you're here, that you give us the chance to interview you, and
Wow. Lady, wow, I am so amazed due to the fact that we have discovered many undiscovered things about our local teen tonight as we just share with the world about local teen. Only a few this inner elite circle knew, and Dr. Keith Scott reconfirmed the fact. Lady, please share your thought and information on what we have learned about exclusive interview. For me, as Dr. Scott said, the God asset, it is an asset that is hard to place well in most people, and it's hard to reconcile this argument of God existence. But let me say this. Lopratin is not a greedy person. Lopratin is an incredibly wise, very stable, and firm person I ever known. This is God's asset. King Solomon has passed down thousands of years before beginning of BC, especially as we are extremely unfortunate to have Lopratin, especially as Khmer. Again, thank you, Dr. Scott, for this confirmation of Lopratin. It is soul heir and controller of God asset. Lady, I could go on and on and on about our Lopratin. But Kina, what is your thought about this interview on?
Well, Long, as Dr. Keith had mentioned that this is God asset, and the world has to use it, very wisely, and that's why Lopratin was the chosen one. He was the chosen one because he's a fair person, and he knows, is well known to humankind, and he's very genuine, and that's the reason why they chose him to be this error arbiter. Long. And then, not only that, I'm very honored to have this privilege tonight, this evening, and this is something that I will remember for the rest of my life, especially the information shared by Dr. Scott. And I am so, it's just intriguing, and I'm very astonished by it, Long. As verified earlier in the interview, the 9 global trading accounts are the main components of their financial system. And then Lopratin is the only person that has the final say of the system. That is why the ratifications and recognitions of His Excellency authority is the requirement in moving forward with the transitions into the new system, which, always been like the talk of the table. The quantum financial system will begin to commence this year, and I'm pretty much excited to learn about it and to hear much more about the quantum system. Bong.
Wow,
Mong
thank you.
Kalyan,
Ông
do you have
Kalyan,
any-
yes.
Yes, I just want to add before I continue on to my thoughts on the whole interview.
Your microphone is hard to hear, On. Can you fix? Sorry.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I could hear you now.
Okay. And I was saying that, I would like to add to the God asset before I continue on to my thoughts about the interview. Bong, like China said, Lopratin is the chosen one. And I also would like to add that with his pure heart, he was given and he was handed of God's asset. He did not fight for it. No, he did not ask for it. But he is the chosen one because of his pure heart. Okay. And for my thoughts tonight, Lopratin, Nick Hyum could not find any appropriate words to say thank you. And sorry, I get to that, just get emotional.
I know.
And thank you, Lopratin, for teaching all of us what we know today that we were not able to learn at school or even know if it existed. And tonight, Dr. Scott had shared the most important pertinent information of the financial world and the power of Lupatians that we cannot find it anywhere regardless. And thank you to Dr. Scott for reconfirming and revalidating about His Excellency that, you know, I do not know of in the last 15 years. You know, and Lupatian, you know, I would like to apologize in advance if I am overstepping my boundary today, but I must let the world know that, you know, all Khmer that are listening tonight, right now, you know, what we have just heard from Dr. Scott validated my belief, and there's no doubt under the sun over the years. And Lupatian, you are the most powerful person on this planet. I am so grateful to know you, and most of all that you are Khmer, just like all of us here. And thank you, Lupatian, for giving all Khmer the opportunity to rise from dust and from this evil man Hun Sen and his regime, you know, that have been destroying Khmer and our beautiful land and beautiful culture for the last 43 years. And back to you, Bong. I just get so emotional because, you know, when we talk about Lupatian, and also, you know, one more thing, Gina, regarding the that you mentioned about the 9 global accounts, that 9 commitment holders merge into one. You know, this is the facts. You know, those accounts, those 9 accounts are no longer controlled by 9 people. Since then, only one person, actually one person that has the control of those 9 global accounts. You know, as stated by Dr. Scott, Lupatian is the only one.
And the chosen one.
Yes.
Yeah.
And what's make it very powerful is that all those 9 codes systematically embedded in Lupatian's head. And due to his wisdom and his intelligence mind, you know, and let me say it again, you know, ladies, you know, those 9 accounts are systematically memorized in Lupatian's head that no one could take it away from him. Only God can take it away from His Excellency. Now, every time I talk about this, I get goosebumps, and I'm just getting so emotional because one Khmer controlling the financial world. One Khmer. So that's what I have to
And
say.
you know, yeah, and I also, you know, wanted to recap what you know, Dr. Scott has said about if anything happened to this particular one Khmer, the whole system in the world will collapse.
Exactly.
The whole central bank will collapse.
Yes.
So all the central bank government in the whole world is work under the system of Federal Reserve. So that's what I find very intriguing. And like I said, it like what Hun Sen did to him back in 2011, that was really uncalled for. That's something that is going to hurt the whole world. So that's the reason why we have the 300 committee, you know, will help us take our country back from this evil,
Yes.
diabolical man. You know, he wished that him and his children is going to take control of Cambodia for the next decade. There's no way. I don't think it's ever going to happen. Not when Lupatian is still alive.
Yes.
You know.
Both sides is
Yeah.
going to take over, to pass it on. You know, that is
Yeah.
to his son, his grandkid, his dictatorship. It's not going to happen on our land now.
Wow.
Lupatian's gonna
He is going to bring us,
liberate,
going to make us all rise again. Our world, not only Cambodia is going to be great, what I also heard is that he is going to make Cambodian great, and we are going to be a set of the example of the world in the near future, you know.
Yes.
And that's something that all Khmer need to look into. And instead of skipping this whole ordeal right in front of you, you know, and just, you know, start to conform and feel the belief that there's only one Khmer that's controlling the whole asset, you know. Like we have said, you know, we did an interview with Dr. Scott, and he verified everything. I mean, there's nothing that is left. I mean, what is there not to believe? You know, bong. So we this is a whole, you know, ball game. This is something that is true.
Yes,
you know.
Research. You know, you learn from school. I mean, you speak English. You have your degree. You know, go and do research. You know, don't criticize.
Exactly.
You know, do your research before you criticize.
Exactly.
Or you know what? Or just contact us, right? Contact us, ask us questions.
Oh, yes, we'll be
we
happy.
will give them an answer. How is our Lopatin, who he is.
And why do we believe in him so much? I mean, you know, all these people that keep evading Dr. Ray Sidam, we should be sitting there wondering, why are we avoiding or evading the most, you know, person, the person that's controlling everything that the world has. Why are you avoiding? You know, try to figure it out. Try to find out why we believe in this individual.
No, the thing is, you know, there were nine down to one vote in Lopatin's head.
Yeah,
that's how intelligent this man is. He memorized all those nine code in his head. That's why
unbelievable. Yes.
And you know what, Bong, the government, what Dr. Scott had also mentioned was very powerful, is that the government of the world elected Dr. Ray Sidam, you know, to be the world controller, the controller, the asset controller of the world. The government, it doesn't matter whether the American government, Australian government, or you know, the Great Britain government, they all, you know, hold him as a sole arbiter, you know, to control it.
Yes.
Probably China and probably it's too deep for them to understand. You know,
but it's not hard enough to ask question, Mom. You know, I mean, you ask question if you don't understand. So
like they said, with his pure heart of humanity, those assets are to be used for humanity.
Exactly.
So I believe that this is, you know, Cambodia will be the first example that Lopatin gonna show the world how to use those God assets for humanity, to lift people from poverty.
Yes.
That's what I believe.
I believe that too, Bong.
Yes. So, okay, Bong, sorry.
Thank you, lady. No, that's thank you so much.
It all worked out, Bong.
My two sisters, and it's just like, you know, our Lopatin, he is out of this world. I'm still like, my heart like pounding. I'm pinching myself, how lucky we are, you know. Thank you so much, lady. Thank you, lady, for sharing your thought tonight. And now our show have come to end, but tonight's show is certainly the most exclusive. My fellow Khmer worldwide is listening to us tonight. We just want to let you all know that we are much closer and closer to liberate our motherland from the evil regime. So be prepared for the new Khmer Republic government, for the people and by the people. The Supreme Council of Khmer for Rescue will ensure that all the traitors will be brought to justice. So if any of you want to be part of this history, please contact us, Khmer Lady Viewpoint team, to become Sckhk member. Before we close out this wonderful evening, we would like to acknowledge Luk Chumtil Savanho and Mr. Oksawar for the guidance and support of our Supreme Council of Khmer for Rescue Khmer Lady Viewpoint show, as always. And last but not least, to His Excellency, Professor Dr. Richard Dam, we all the Supreme Council of Khmer for Rescue Khmer Lady wish to thank you, Your Excellency, from the bottom of our heart, for giving all of us here the opportunity to be part of the history. Until we meet again next month, please follow the Khmer Politics and the Supreme Council of Khmer for Rescue. If you find this show, please share it. Thank you, everyone, and good night and Happy New Year.
Good night and Happy New Year, everyone.
យើងខ្ញុំទាំងអស់គ្នាសូមថ្លែងអំណរគុណដល់លោកស្រីប្រិយមិត្តតែងតែតាមដានកម្មវិធីទស្សនៈស្ត្រីនៃឧត្តមក្រុមប្រឹក្សាខ្មែរជួយខ្មែររំដោះជាតិយើងនឹងវិលជួបអស់លោកសាជាថ្មីនៅវេលាក្រោយសូមថ្លែងអំណរគុណគោរពជម្រាបលា
ខ្មែរអើយក្រោកឡើងមកលើកដំកើងជាតិនឹងសាំងស្នារួមជាកម្លាំងដើម្បីខែមរារងមមអស្ចារ្យអភិវឌ្ឍរុងរឿងឡាកូនដាក្រមយើងខ្មែរតែមួយកម្លាំងលើកស្ទួយជួយជាតិកុំកាខ្មែរក្រៅខ្មែរក្នុងក្រុងស្រែងើបឡើងជួយរៀមឆ្លងយ៉ាងដើម្បីមាតុភូមិខ្មែរអើយខ្មែរក្រោកឡើងក្រោកឡើងក្រោកឡើងក្រោកឡើងក្រោកដេញចោលមាចោលប៉ុនសងកូនយន់ចិនឃាតកោកូនមនីនិយមហើយស្រែកបំភ្លេងបនឡំថានឹងមកជួយខ្មែរពេលលាលោណាំខ្មែរត្រូវលើកស្ទួយលោកប្រធានតែមួយតំណាងជាតិខ្មែរឯកឧត្តមដំឆ្លាន់រៃក្លាហានពូកែបដញ្ញាជួយខ្មែរបានសុខសាន្តអើខ្មែរអើយខ្មែរក្រោកឡើងក្រោកឡើងក្រោកឡើងក្រោកឡើងក្រោកដេញចោលមាចោលក្បន់សងកូនយន់ចិនឃាតកោកូននីនិយមហើយស្រែកមកភ្លេងបនឡំថានឹងមកជួយខ្មែរវេលាលោណាំខ្មែរត្រូវលើកស្ទួ